Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. I have four big stories for you today and a few little odds and ends. Okay, so let's start in what's going on in Europe, the G7. The US is ready to transfer up to $20 billion to Ukraine as part of the G7 loan, which will be repaid from the profits of frozen Russian assets. Okay, that was a good plan. Rather than just giving the money, they can keep spending this on the profits of the frozen Russian assets, and it's a good way to split the difference. More at the G7, defense ministers from the G7 countries have expressed their support for Ukraine's irreversible path forward to full Euro-Atlantic integration. Okay, good enough so far, including NATO membership. The question is when, but they keep expressing, yes, you'll be in NATO, you'll be in NATO, you'll be in NATO. Again, we just need to know when that's going to take place because that's really the important piece of that puzzle. Okay, next. The United States is ready to invite Ukraine to NATO under certain conditions, according to Le Monde, the French newspaper. If Kamala Harris wins the upcoming U.S. presidential election, Joe Biden may start working on inviting Ukraine to NATO during the transition period. Okay, so is it contingent on her winning the presidency that you're going to do this? Why wouldn't you do this now, the election? Why wouldn't you do it after the election before Trump gets into office and actually start working down that path? So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. In addition, Berlin's position may influence the U.S. opinion, the media writes. A change in Washington's position could also affect a change in Berlin's attitude, which opposes Ukraine's rapid accession to the alliance. And what actually got us here was that that opinion back in 2008, the opposition, particularly from Germany, a little bit from France, which cause them not to get like, you will be invited, but we are not going to actually invite you anytime soon. That's what got us where we are right now. And the article adds that the Americans themselves no longer have any fundamental objections to a simple invitation. If Kamala Harris wins the election, Biden will be able to move this direction for a certain period of time. Here's the actual article from Le Monde. Biden, Macron, Schultz, and Starmer divided on inviting Ukraine to join NATO. And it talks about how the American president took advantage of a brief visit to Germany on Friday, October 18th, in Berlin to discuss with Olaf Scholz, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, the hot topics of the moment in Ukraine and in the Middle East. On Ukraine, the main topic on the agenda for the four leaders seeking above all to coordinate the response to the victory plan that Volodymyr Zelensky presented to them. Okay, well, of course, they need to do that. Ukraine, again, will be invited to NATO within the borders of 1991. That's important. While the issue of joining the alliance partially and particularly excluding the territories temporarily occupied by Russia is not being discussed with allies. So they have to work through how would they invite them to NATO. Would it include these territories? Would it not include these territories? And they have to get that sorted out. So this came from Olga Stefashina, the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration. So it came from a pretty legitimate source, but we don't know what this will look like just yet. Okay, next, second big story. We're talking about North Korea again. Lloyd Austin is saying that he cannot confirm reports that North Korea has sent troops to Russia to participate in the war against Ukraine. The U.S. continues to investigate this, and if it turns out to be true, it will be very serious. Well, it's pretty clear that they are there. South Korean National Intelligence Service reports that North Korean soldier identified using AI facial recognition is active on the front lines of Russia and Ukraine. The soldier was spotted at the KN-23 missile launch site near Donetsk wearing a Russian uniform. NIS reports that North Korean missile engineers are deployed to support the launch of North Korean missiles, aiming to identify technical issues and enhance their technology. So it's happening. The U.S. is perhaps being extra cautious, but they'll figure it out soon enough. North Korea has deployed one of its most secretive units, according to Noel reports, its special operations forces to Russia, according to the Telegraph. A 2021 U.S. intelligence report states that this elite unit is highly trained, motivated, and equipped with the best gear available in North Korea, at least. Okay. Meanwhile, it looks like a military base housing North Korean soldiers may have been struck by a drone in Oryol region. Now, I I don't know if this is legit or not. It's posted by Igor Shushko, who is generally a legitimate source. I see it again with Olga Nesterova, and she's a reporter, journalist, analyst, White House correspondent. So it seems like it's from legitimate sources, but I haven't seen it in larger news sources. So just take it with a grain of salt until it's proven out. And when you see it in Reuters and AP and things like that, you'll be able to say it with a higher level of confidence. And I say that because you want to say this is definitely true or this is probably true. And here's something that's a little bit more speculative. This is from Tender, which is a good source, but while the North Korean intervention in Russia's war against Ukraine exposed once again Western appeasement, it's overshadowed something much more important. The Republic of Korea, that's South Korea, is a military and technological powerhouse. Now, this is commentary, and we want to take it as commentary. What that means can be summarized quite easily. Whatever North Korea does, it will be countered with a South Korean gambit. Seoul fully understands that a Russian win in Ukraine could mean what it could mean for a North Korean win. This won't be accepted in Seoul. Well, maybe, maybe not. Putin is a tactician but a lousy strategist. His alliance with North Korea comes out of desperation. I think that's fair. The war in Ukraine offers for South Korea's military industry a unique opportunity to test their weapon systems, which are already considered one of the best in the world. Okay, let's say that that is the case. We don't know that that necessarily means that the South Koreans would get into it. Just bring magnets to the battlefield. Now, this is obviously fictitious, but breaking news: Ukraine deploys giant magnets after spotting North Korean officers on the battlefield. All right. Next, we're going to go to the next big story, third big story. Today, Moldova is holding presidential elections, along with a referendum on constitutional amendments that aim to facilitate the country's future integration into the European Union. This is pretty big. According to preliminary polls, Sandu, that's the president, is leading against 10 other candidates, including a former prosecutor general who is supported by opposition parties. And it's not just what's going on in Moldova. Georgia is also about to have an election. Thousands have gathered in Tbilisi's Liberty Square for the Georgia Chooses the European Union demonstration happening right now. Georgia Chooses the European Union. A massive opposition march is taking place in Tbilisi ahead of the parliamentary elections on October 26th. That's going to be very big for Georgia as well. Okay. Headline: Putin says Russia will not allow Ukraine to create nuclear weapons. I'm sure you think that, but I'm not sure that you can actually do anything about it. Like, what will Russia do? Invade? I mean, how are they going to stop that? I know it's not easy to create a nuclear weapon, right? But can Russia really stop that if the Ukrainians were like, it's more likely that the Americans would stop it than that the Russians would. Okay. Last big story. I talked about this yesterday in my 5 important updates video. I talked about the predictions market, then I talked about Alan Lichtman, who has a different model, and then I talked about a number of political polls. And I do that to triangulate on the facts, trying to get to the actual answer, because no one source is authoritative. And then a number of you got back to me and were saying, hey, look, they're manipulating the prediction markets. Yes, they might be. Here, the Financial Times investigation shows Peter Thiel's poly market is now rigged to fool Democratic voters into staying home. Maybe that's the case. Here is a bit about prediction markets. I didn't talk about poly market. I talked about predicted, which is, to my mind, a little bit better of a prediction market, but okay. So what are prediction markets and what are they trying to do? So here, prediction markets are also called futures markets and information markets. They're a unique type of futures exchange that facilitates speculation on the outcome of all sorts of common events. They differ from traditional securities markets in several important ways. Rather than representing equity ownership, they're basically betting that this is going to happen or that's going to happen in the future. And so there's a number of them, and they're fairly accurate. The prediction markets derive their uncanny accuracy through a concept sociologists and statisticians call the wisdom of crowds, by tapping into the knowledge base and informed opinions of large, diverse, independent population that is highly incentivized to make a correct prediction because they're spending their own money essentially placing these bets, trying to make a little bit more. Such markets are usually much more accurate than any relatively small number of experts. Okay, Like any market and any investment, there are risks, and prediction markets are relatively immature, so they may be susceptible to market manipulation. And that could be happening in Polymarket. I just don't know. That's not the one that I was talking about. There's Polymarket, which is probably the most technologically advanced prediction exchange. There's Kalshi, which is the prediction market for the speculator who wants the highest degree of possible security. But I was talking about Predicted, which may be the most popular and important of the mainstream prediction markets. So that's what I was talking about here. But even then, I wasn't saying Predicted said it, I believe it, that settles it. I was still trying to triangulate on facts. Now, some of you were certainly reading the Daily Beast, seeing this article, betting market that touts massive Trump win is being manipulated according to experts. Well, it's certainly possible, but polls can also be manipulated as well. Okay, last few things. This is Gabriel S. Landsbergis. I highlight him quite a bit because he says some really good things. China's interests. Now, we talk about China being maybe brokering a peace deal. Bad idea. China has no reason to help us secure a peace for Ukraine, and we have no reason to believe that they would act in good faith. The suggestion that China could be an arbiter of peace is dangerous and highly unserious. I think he's probably right about that. Okay, a couple last things. I was just on Silicon Curtain today. If you're interested in hearing that, we're talking about politics, among other things, and just how to frame it, how to think about it, and what could happen or will happen immediately after the election. And then I saw this and I thought, wow, that seems I'm looking at body language. I don't speak kangaroo, but that looks like a last nerve warning. I think that's what's going on here. Last little thing, my friends, I saw this and I thought, wow, album cover of the lamest band in our age. What a great caption. Like, why is he standing like this? What's going on? It looks like they're at a concert. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the coffees, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.